how water, age, and deterioration are impacting the bridges in order to best prolong their lifespans. The 9 bridges will be evaluated for possible improvements, including modernization and safety updates. Support this newscast and this station now by becoming a member at kpft.org. And thanks for tuning in to 90.1 KPFT Houston.
Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's moving. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing heading down. I search for the beat in this dirty town. Downtown, the young ones are going. Downtown, the young ones are growing. We're the kids in America. Whoa. We're the kids in America. Whoa. Everybody lives for the music around.
All right, welcome to Growing Up in America here on KPFT Pacifica Radio. It's Dr. Bob Sanborn, along with Bree Derry, who's in the studio with us. Bree, how you doing?
I'm good, Dr. Bob. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. So usually Bree is behind the scenes producing the whole thing, but she said, hey, I really want to speak out, and so here you are. Claire is off to London, and you are here. And we're working, right? We're going to try different people out. Is that what we're thinking about doing?
Oh, absolutely. A rotating co-host all the way. No one can ever compare to Claire by any means,
Of
but
course,
we'll do our best.
Do we have any idea who we might expect over the next couple weeks?
Ooh, so I would love to tease that our favorite Mandy Kimball might be coming on soon.
Mandy,
We
yes.
have some Caroline Roberts in the future, maybe a little bit of Jason Sabo, our advocacy guy. It's amazing.
So some really good people. Today we're going to do, as always, a discussion on our children, public policy, and how do we as a city community do when it comes to taking care of all of our kids. So a couple of great guests. So Keiara Branch is going to be with us. She's the founder and CEO of Black Girls Do Engineer. And she's always fantastic.
Oh, she's amazing. We've known her for a few years now, and she always has great things to say.
Keiara Jones, who's the partnership manager for communities and schools. They do great work, so we look forward to hearing from Keiara. Natalie Sánchez-Lopez is the executive director and CEO of Latino Texas Policy Center. We're going to be talking a little bit about immigration and things that are going on there. Rebecca Cox is going to be with us. She's the chief program officer for Girls, Inc., here in Greater Houston. So we'll be talking a little bit with her. And then as always, thumbs up, thumbs down. This is going to be a good one coming up after the break. We're going to be talking about ear piercing. How old were you when you got your ears pierced for the first time?
Oh, I think I was 8 years old,
So
and
you
I
were
actually did it behind my mom's back.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Did
terrible.
you go to Claire's in the mall?
I did.
I think a lot of people do that, right? So.
It's the go-to.
And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Should we be doing this early on, or should we wait till later on? The whole idea of permanent body modification. Yet, indeed, a lot of kids get this done as babies, right? Mm-hmm. So, a lot of parents do that. So we'll be talking about that. And then our data of the day today, it's 1/3. Do you have any idea what 1/3 could be? 1/3 of our children, blankety blank. So I don't know. I'm
1/3 of our children in Houston went to an out-of-school program.
There you go. That's a good one. I think that's an excellent, good guess. Probably wrong, because we're always wrong with that. But Chris Colessa will be here as our doctor. Data of the day, 1/3. So coming up after the quick break, we're going to be talking about ear piercing, and should we be doing this to babies? Or should we be waiting? But should parents get their infants' ears pierced is our thumbs up, thumbs down. We'll be right back here on KPFT on Growing Up in America.
If you don't wanna see me dancing with somebody, if you wanna believe that anything could stop me,
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Should parents get their infants' ears pierced? You were 8 years old. Why didn't your parents do it when you were a baby?
I don't know. They're very big into letting me choose my own future and kind of pave out my own pathway. So that's probably what it has to do with. But my sister, when I was 8, decided I just needed to have my ears pierced because I wanted it so, so bad. So she took me to get my ears pierced, and I really wish I had them done earlier.
Yeah. A lot of parents, especially Latino parents, are saying, let's get this baby's ears pierced right away. Mm-hmm. I know growing up in Puerto Rico, a lot of babies, especially baby girls, right, would get their ears pierced. It's a cultural thing, I think, that we see a lot of these families. But I think the question remains, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't think there's an overwhelming amount of evidence to say it's a bad thing. Except it's another sort of potential thing that could go wrong. But I don't know that it really goes wrong.
Well, and thinking about when I got my ears pierced at 8 years old, I did not take care of those things. I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And my mom didn't want me to have them anyways, so she left it up to me. Mm-hmm. And I remember they fell out. We had to re-pierce them. Like, had I just been a baby, they could have done it for me. And it would have been so much easier and less painful, I think.
We told our daughter that I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, she had to wait till she was pierced. And then, of course, we live in Montrose, so she didn't want to go to Claire's. She wanted to go to one of the tattoo piercing places, right? I mean, that's legit, right? And so... some of the things you see in there, you prefer that your 7th grade daughter doesn't see. But I think that it was sort of a good experience, and it was like another sort of growing up experience for her. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I have no strong opinions on this one, but I know, here's the thing, with young moms, there are strong opinions on this. There's a whole group of people that say no, and a whole group that say yes.
Absolutely. And so I think that while I am kind of a thumbs up here myself, I think that really it's thumbs up, thumbs down, up to your family more than anything.
Yeah, I think whatever is going to work for you. Mm-hmm. So that's thumbs up, thumbs down for the day. Coming up after the break, Keiara Branch is going to be with us. Keiara is the founder and CEO of Black Girls Do Engineer. We're going to be talking about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and how does it pertain to girls? How does it pertain to women, young women of color? We'll talk with Keiara Branch right after the break. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America.
Ey, y aprovechame hoy, que mañana me voy y no sé cuándo vuelvo. Si en tus ojos me pierdo y aprovechame.
Rico playing some of the Latino music. He knows that this is my jam. I love that. So, you know what? We need to get on later on. Who do I really like? Carol G, right? So, that's who we want to put on a little bit more. On the line with us is Keiara Branch, who's the founder and CEO of Black Girls Do Engineer. Keiara, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. So for those in our audience that don't know about Black Girls Do Engineer, give us sort of the elevator speech, if you will, Keiara, very briefly. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, our mission at Black Girls Do Engineer is really to educate, elevate, and empower girls as young as 6 years old up to 21 by offering my favorite 2 words that we use, exposure and representation, to help them achieve and inspire their aspirations in life. So we really have 3 pillars. 1 pillar is our membership portion of our program, 2 is community, and 3 is to support our educators.
This morning in the New York Times, Keiara, there was a big, I think it was the cover of the business section, was all about how China has many, many more STEM programs and schools are much more STEM focused. Talk a little bit about how poorly or how are we doing in the United States in general when it comes to STEM education, and how does that sort of impact underrepresented communities in our country?
Yeah, so I can talk to that from a couple of ways. As far as women in this space, not so well. We have about 35% of women that make up STEM roles here in the U.S., and really 3% of that is Black women, so that's the number that we focus on.
Wow.
But since I travel a lot from city to city in different states to do work in our wonderful nation, is that some cities get a little bit better than we do here in Houston. So there is some ways to go there. Some of the cities that I've been to that is really huge for STEM education, one that I like to highlight is Los Angeles. They have a lot of great programs there, and they have a lot of STEM education incorporated into their learning systems. We're in in Texas, sometimes I feel that it's a thing that teachers want to do. They don't have the flexibility to do it or the resources or support. So it kind of get looked at as like an after-school program or something on the side where some cities they're incorporating into their educational.
That's amazing. Kara, sorry, it's Bri on the line here. I just wanted to ask you, just hearing about your amazing work in all three pillars that you do, what is so special about your program? What sets you guys apart that you wish that others would kind of emulate to increase representation of Black girls in STEM?
Yeah, so our program is led by STEM professionals. So I'm a chemical engineer by degree, and my team that works with me are either doctors or work in higher education around things such as STEM. So we're really taking our approach from a career-based experiences. So we're taking things that we've done in industry that we know that corporations are looking for, and we're incorporating that into our program. So we have our own licensed curriculum that we've built just around that. So we're able to help girls in our community from a different lens. And for us, that's real life experience.
And Kara, in general, right, I think in the United States, we sort of have this idea that, math is hard, or we don't do a good job at teaching or learning math. And when we talk about communities of color, that perception is even greater. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think math and community of colors, it's like a scary thing. I've been fortunate to when I got to college, I had really great math teachers. I'll shout him out. He's no longer living, but Dr. Freddie Frazier. I went to HBCU, Prairie View was my school. And learning from him, I was able to learn calculus without even doing a calculator. It's just he just understood how to teach it to children, adults of color. And I think for our community, they're scared. It's a lot of numbers. It's just, I really think kids, when they see those numbers like that and they're not really understanding it in the classroom, and there's not a lot of resources and support in these communities to really help them enhance the struggles that they may be having with mathematics, that's a problem in this community. I know as an advocate for my own daughters in the schools that they go to, my daughter, I had to help her get through math, and it takes a lot of resources and support. It can be getting curriculums, getting with teachers to understand what they're going to be teaching that year. I've done that to be able to make sure my daughter stays on track for math. But in underserved communities of color, there's no resources for that. So they're sitting in these classrooms struggling with understanding it, and they're not able to get support either because there's no funding for that.
And are you able to, in the programs that you were doing, Kara, are you guys able to sort of make math, engineering, technology sort of fun? Is that part of the deal?
Yeah, we've done it a lot of different ways. So we've built projects around mathematics that our girls were surprised that they were math. So for one thing we've done is creating earrings with our girls, and that's a lot of measurements and dimensions of creating earrings. And when we got done with that, it was like, this is all mathematics. They were shocked of how fun math can be. So we found pretty cool hands-on activities to get them excited about math, really without even knowing it until we reflect on what they've done.
Wow.
As somebody who growing up never really loved math myself, but have a great respect for it, I love the tricking people into liking math, into having fun with math. I think that's the coolest approach possible. I would just love to hear one or two of your favorite stories or favorite moments that you call a success from your mentorship work with these girls or with the teachers you're working with as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments is most definitely one of our, she's now about to be a junior at Texas Lehman University. Come from an underserved community. She was really told that going into her senior year, when she was applying for colleges, that she shouldn't even go to a four-year university. She needs to consider community college first.
Oh.
And so she really had made up in her mind that that was her route. It took us literally 8 months to change that thought process, that she could still try. Once she got over that hump, we were able to help her get accepted into 5 universities. And she went on a full ride scholarship with the support of our program.
Wow.
So it's really just letting them know that you can, don't take no or for an answer. Try to find a way around that. And so we were able to support her with that. and so many other beautiful stories. When I first started, I always thought about, having our girls be recruitment for, corporations. But I'm learning as I've been doing it for 5 years is that now we're a recruitment for colleges. They come and they want our girls because they're scholars. So a lot of our girls have been able to go to some Ivy Leagues over the summer and do some really, really great engineering programs with these schools. So it's just good to see that our work is really impacting our members' lives and providing them a lot of opportunity.
Keiara, a lot of parents think that maybe it's just inherent if you like math or you don't like math. But what we see in many cultures around the world is this idea that a lot of it is also dependent upon the activities that parents engage with their kids in terms of sort of keeping them open to math, and that it could be just like anything else, right? It's just about nurture, not necessarily nature. What are some of the things that you recommend based upon what you've done with your own girls? What are some of the things that you would say parents should be doing more of this if they want to make their kids open to math and potentially in the future math careers or related careers?
Yeah, turning it into a game or fun activity would be the right way to go. And I know it's easier said than done. Things in the past that we've done, and I think a lot of educators is using this program. Hopefully I'm about to say it right, but I think it's Kahoot or something they're using in classrooms now where they've taken these concepts around math and turned it into a group game, right? So you're working in groups in school now, and you're able to play, but it's still math, right? We've done things like that with our elementary girls in camps, and they really enjoyed it. So kind of making it just a fun thing to do instead of like, here's a worksheet, here to solve this problem, because that brings on a lot of frustration for them because they're already kind of scared of it. So when you put it in front of them like that, it's kind of intimidating. So turning it into a fun game, I would suggest.
And in our last 30 seconds, I know that you guys have gone national, Keiara. I know that we've known you for a number of years, and you guys are national. Are you finding that there's a lot of interest with this idea of black girls doing engineering? Who are the people that are finding this interest across the country? Is it school districts? Is it municipalities? What are you finding?
Yeah, so for us, it's been social media. So, yes, there's a lot of interest. I just got back from New York on Monday. And that event, I had 100 girls sign up in 4 days and sell it out. And so it's a lot of girls everywhere. Their parents are learning about it, and they are most definitely interested in what we're doing.
Wow. Keiara Branch is the founder and CEO of Black Girls Do Engineer, a national organization started right here in Houston. Keiara, thank you very, very much for the work that you and your whole team are doing. So appreciate it, and hope we'll have you back again.
Yeah, thank you both.
All right. Take care, Keiara. Coming up after the break, Keiara Jones is going to be with us. She is with Communities in Schools. We're going to be talking a little bit about mental health and support in our schools. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America. All right, it's Bree and Dr. Bob here in the studio. Bree, so far so good?
So far so good.
So I understand you woke up in the middle of the night with heart palpitations. You were like nervous about doing the show.
I was. You see, I'm a technician. I don't do public speaking. I set you up to look good. I don't need to look good.
I never look good, so you might as well be here in the studio. So I'm so excited that you're here. Because the work that you do is so invaluable for us, because you are the director of media activism for Children at Risk. So that means you're like engaging communities and just doing all sorts of great work, social media included, right? It's like a big part of it. And one of the things that we've been focusing a lot lately and that we're going to do during the legislative session is mental health, right? Mm-hmm. So it's do you get a lot of feedback when we talk about that issue?
Oh, always. I think it's probably the top concern that I'm hearing from the community these days across Houston, across Texas, and even nationally. It's massive.
Yeah. So that is a not so a little clunky segue to Keiara Jones. Keiara is the partnership manager over at Communities in Schools here in Houston. Keiara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very, very good. Talk to us a little bit about, we've had communities and schools on the program many times, but give us a little, for those that may not know, give us a little bit of an idea of your footprint in regards to mental health in our schools.
Okay, so Communities and Schools of Houston is an organization that partners with school districts and school campuses across the greater Houston area to provide different types of support for students and their families. And we do this from K through 12 campuses, and we also partner with some Lone Star campuses as well. So we're there to support students from little bitties to adults.
Yeah. In the state of Texas, Keiara, we tend not to pay a lot of attention to mental health, right? When we talk about mental health services, we're always ranked at the bottom of the country, like number 49th or 50 or 51st. How does that manifest itself when it comes to our schools? Where are our students sort of falling short because of our lack of mental health?
I think when we really think about it, outside forces impact us as adults every day. And so the same thing is possible with students. So students are showing up to school with things on their minds, whether they did not get a meal last night, or they have housing insecurity, or they may be dealing with some great life event, like maybe they've experienced a death or something recently.
Yeah.
And so those types of things can greatly impact a child's ability to be focused in class and to be successful.
I'm going to ask you a tough question, Keiara, and I don't know if you have an answer, but I was in a meeting this morning where we were talking about immigrant school children in Houston and in Texas, and about half the school children in Houston are either children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. And we're not talking undocumented. We're talking about just kids that are here. When those kids have the trauma that they've dealt with in getting to the country and adjusting to a new culture, I mean, what are the resources available in a school that are going to help those and other kids that have some of this trauma?
So what I think is really unique to Communities in Schools, we have 6 core services that we strive to help our students with. And because of that, we don't have a cookie cutter program. So what our staff does is they go into the schools and they identify the culture and the climate of that school and the needs of that school. And then they further define that by the needs of the specific students that are on their caseloads. And so whatever those students are in need of, whether they are immigrant children or children of immigrants, or they are students who are local to our city or in our country, we provide them with whatever they need. And if we don't have the capacity in CIS to provide them with that, we have a plethora of resources that we can give to them in referrals.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And I think that partnerships can only further expand our impact for children and our ability to support them better. How have you guys explored community partnerships to find and source these resources for kids and kind of fill in those gaps where you don't have the manpower to do it yourself?
So we have, in the partnership department, we have established a community agency list. And so those are lists of organizations that we have vetted that provide different resources and services to different parts of the community. We're on 130 campuses across the greater Houston area. So it's a lot of ground to cover. So on that list, there are a range of services from immigration services to food services, housing services, to other mental health services. It's a large range. And then a lot of our staff, because they are on the campuses every day, they go out and they canvass their area and they find local companies or organizations that are willing to help the students in their area, the families in their area, and then we partner with those local organizations to help our families.
That's amazing. Often it's just about finding them and asking, find.
Yeah. Keiara, what is the difference when we talk about mental health in the schools? We've talked a lot lately. Last week we talked a lot about Latino children in terms of the number of counselors available to them. If you're in a regular school, let's say in the greater Houston area, the number of counselors in a school, usually they're very busy. They don't have time to do a lot of mental health. But even then, per number of kids that are in that school, for the number of counselors, it's a very tough deal to get an appointment. What's the difference between that and a school where you might have communities in schools and you need mental health assistance?
So what I would say is the difference is that we are able to partner. So you may have 3 counselors on a campus, but like you said, they're very busy people, and they have like whole grades. Like say you're on the middle school campus, you have a 6th grade counselor, so they're responsible for all of the 6th graders, a 7th grade counselor, and so forth and so on. And so what CIS typically does is we stand in the gap. Yes, those counselors are there to help those students, but we are also there. Students always know that they can maybe find Miss Jones in room 211, and they could come in and walk in and share what they need to share. Or they can set up times with me or whoever the staff person is, because I'm no longer on school campuses, but set up a time with that staff person to meet and have their needs met.
Well, what's the best advice that you have for parents? This is the first week of school for many school districts, the second week for a few. For parents, though, that want to make sure that their kids are mentally very healthy, right? And this is obviously very stressful, back to school. You never know what's going to happen. What's the best advice for parents in terms of how they should be working with their kids?
I would suggest that you have open dialogue and just talk. We find that students who have a trusted adult tend to do a little bit better. Maybe the parent isn't necessarily that trusted adult, and not that they don't trust them, but we all know kids. Sometimes we don't want to share certain things with our parents. So if they have someone that they can confide in and trust in, and they know that that person has their best interests at heart, I think that that's the best way to approach that.
Wow. And Keiara, since it is back to school week, what was your favorite subject when you were like little Keiara Jones?
I would say maybe reading. I love to get lost in a different world, right?
Yeah.
And so reading so that I can experience some other time or space.
Did you have a favorite book when you were a kid?
I really liked Junie B. Jones.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Who didn't like Junie B. Jones? I mean, this was invented after me. They wrote it after me. But did you like that, Brie? Did you like Junie B. Jones?
I was obsessed with Junie B. Jones.
Wow.
Absolutely.
My daughter loved Junie B. Jones as well. So.
She was fabulous.
And, of course, Jones, right? It makes all the difference right there. So, Keiara Jones is the Partnership Manager at Communities and Schools Houston. Thank you, Keiara, very much. And please give a warm hello to all your colleagues, our friends over there. And thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you so much. I'll have a great one.
All righty. Take care. You're listening to Growing Up in America here on KPFT. Coming up after the break, it's time for Dr. Data. Dr. Chris Kulesa from the Baker Institute over at Rice University will be with us, and he'll be stunning us with some great data. The number today is 1/3, so we're anxious to find out about that. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America. Time for Dr. Data. Chris Kulesa is with us. Dr. Kulesa is at the Baker Institute at Rice University. Chris, so you heard us just talking about favorite subjects in school. What was the favorite thing about school for you, Chris?
I would say probably social studies or geography when I was very young. Then it shifted over. Yeah, then it shifted over to physics, and it went back to social studies. So
yeah. That's funny how that works, right? You like physics for a very short while, and then, I'm going back to social studies. I was such a geography and social studies nerd that, I always read, you've heard me talk about this before, I always read all my textbooks in the first couple of weeks because I loved reading everything.
Did you really?
Yeah, but the first one that I read was always like the geography of social studies. It was always what I wanted to read first, and so that was done like in the first 2 days. So I would read, I loved it. So, and as a kid, I could name every capital of every country, no problem, because that was pretty easy. So
Geography be champion over here.
Yeah, I loved it. So you were probably similar, Chris, weren't you? You're equally as nerdy as I am, wouldn't you say?
I would say. So, how many Star Trek conventions have you been to?
Oh no! See,
That'll be my follow-up question.
Yeah, you just beat me on the nerdiness right there. So, but I have seen I think every series of Star Trek. I think I've seen most everything. I hesitate to pay for Paramount Plus to get everything, but I've done most everything. So on that, Chris, we'll get back to work here. 1/3. What is that? What are you talking about when you talk about 1/3?
So 1/3 is the number of parents that said that they were unable to afford back-to-school shopping for their kids this year.
Wow. So that's 65%. We know that 65% of school kids are coming from low-income families, but, families are struggling just to get these school supplies.
They are, and the average this year was $701.
Oh, that's too much.
So, yeah, it is. And here's the thing that we put so much emphasis on school costs when it comes to college, right? Textbooks for college, tuition. But we have to recognize, of course, that there is a very big cost even sending your kids to pre-K as well. This year we had 34% of parents saying that they were planning on taking on debt to afford their supplies. And another 16% said they were thinking that they were going to be taking on over $1,000 of debt for these school supplies.
And I know that there are some programs where school supplies are bought for the kids, but I'm guessing it's not enough, right?
No, it really isn't enough, right? And of course, schools try to be cognizant as much as they can about how much things how much things cost these days. But of course, we've just seen basically with the economy, especially after COVID-19, inflation really take hold. So with that being said, there really needs to be more attention, I think, at the state level about affordability for these supplies, particularly for our young kids.
Chris, when we think about school supplies and school success, I could only imagine, and I've been there, where you can't afford everything that you need to buy for school supplies. It puts an undue level of stress on kids, right, as they go back, and some things are more important than others, as we know. But still, when a teacher says you're going to need this and this, as a child, you want to get those things. So how hard is it when we see kids that aren't getting all the supplies that their teachers are asking them to get?
I mean, it can be extremely hard. And also think about the sacrifices, too, that parents may need to make in order to afford these school supplies. So, when we're talking about an increase of the cost of school supplies, that also can end up nicking the grocery budget, the housing budget, all of these things that we know can have a very significant impact on the child's well-being, right? So even looking at some of this data that just came out, half of parents said they planned on sacrificing necessities so that they were able to afford school supplies this year. It's really concerning.
Yeah. Is there a policy answer for any of this, Chris? Is there something that we should be thinking about doing that would sort of alleviate what low-income families are going through when it comes to the stress and the needs around school supplies?
So there are a couple options. Of course, the state legislator can try to make certain programs available, certain either subsidy programs for school supplies. The only question becomes, of course, one, making sure that the school supplies or that the budget is indeed being spent on school supplies, making sure that it really does get to parents that really need it. But then, of course, the other thing, too, is just making sure that schools have the support and the resources that they need. So in some cases, those supplies can be available right in the classroom rather than having to put the financial burden on parents.
Yeah. There's so much that needs to be done on this. Chris, I'll try to finish up with a fun thing. When you think about those favorite subjects that you had, and I know that you were probably one of those kids like myself that was always excited about school starting. I don't think we were in the majority, but did you have sort of a favorite book that you had in school, much like we asked Keiara earlier?
Very much so. I would say that there was one book that was even a little bit career-defining for me. It was Foundation by Isaac Asimov.
Oh, wow. Wow. And how do those TV shows that Apple have on Foundation, how do those hold up to the books?
Too different for me, I'm afraid. It's way too different for me.
You're a true fan, then.
I tried it. I watched a couple episodes, and they're good on their own, but calling it foundation, that's a little tough.
Yeah. They're taking a lot of liberties. They're moving around a lot. It's just not the same. But you know what? The book is never. I mean, the movie is never, or the show is never quite as good as the book, especially for those of us that are like big fans, right?
Right, of course.
Yeah, very good. Chris Kulesa is a professor. He's Dr. Chris Kulesa out at the Baker Institute at Rice University as a scholar in child health policy. Thank you so much, Chris, for all the work that you and your colleagues do, and we'll talk to you next week as Date of the Day.
Thanks so much. Talk to you next week.
Very good. And did we get your favorite books, Bree? Did we?
Ooh, I don't think you did,
So
honestly.
what were your favorite books then in school?
As a wee tot, I was obsessed with all things Goosebumps, actually. I hated horror movies, but give me all the Goosebumps, R.L. Stein, all the way.
R.L. Stein, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
But that's still a pretty popular series of books, isn't it? And did they make that into some TV shows?
I think they did, but
But not quite.
not the
very
same.
good. And your favorite subject in school?
Ooh, I would still go with the social studies, actually. I loved learning about culture and people and science and all these, how it all integrates together.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Coming up after the break, we have Natalie Sánchez-Lopez. She's the Executive Director and CEO of the Latino Texas Policy Center. We'll be right back in just a quick minute with Natalie here on Growing Up in America. Rico on the power board out back there, just doing the good music. We gotta love Rico. Very good, Rico. Yeah. So anyway, up next we have Natalie Sánchez-Lopez. She is the Executive Director and CEO of Latino Texas Policy Center. Natalie, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are y'all?
Very good. So back to school week for you. I know we're not getting into back to school as your segment, but since everyone's talking about back to school, did you have a favorite subject in school, Natalie?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was a math nerd. I loved it. I even thought I was gonna become like this huge analytics person and do all kinds of mathematical, beautiful mind kind of things, and then realized that there is the world of policy and politics, and it was so much more fun.
But equally fun, right? I mean, I'm sure you're still very good at the data, aren't you, Natalie?
It depends. It depends who you ask. There are definitely people that are far better than I am interpreting it. Absolutely. Do I love crunching the numbers? Not my thing. I like talking about the data and translating it to words.
I want to ask you, Natalie, I love the work that you guys do at the Latino Texas Policy Center, but recently, last week, the governor decided that he wanted hospitals to start reporting on the immigration status of patients. Talk to us about why that's such a bad idea.
Yeah, thank you guys for bringing the question up. Firstly, let me just say it's 100% wrong. It's unjust. This is clearly a political stunt at best, but ultimately a direct attack and at worst, and it's going to cost people lives. And it's really an attack against our vulnerable population. There's no mistake or misunderstanding that Abbott or those supporting this policy are intending to drive away undocumented or mixed status immigrants, specifically, let's be clear, in Texas, Mexican and other Latino ethnic groups, from getting medical treatment. The goal here is clearly intimidation and to further bolster a false narrative that immigrants are somehow to blame for our state's lack of growth and prosperity. And really, they're trying to build up that fear narrative that people have. They need the scapegoat to blame. In reality, this year, it's been years and years of continued inequitable policymaking that's really led to a lack of what we call human capital investments that's led Texas to have, and Texas families to feel the pressure that they're feeling constantly.
One of the things that we know in terms of looking at the data at Children at Risk is that, here in the Houston area, about half of our kids are children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. Across the state of Texas, we're talking about a third of our children. What does this mean for a future workforce when we're putting all this type of pressure, especially around the hospitals and the health and the impact that has on parents? What does this mean for our future workforce, our children?
I mean, to be clear, they're basically creating kind of a perfect storm of chaos, right? Where you have people, we know very much, research has been shown to show if you don't have significant health care, if you're not in a state of good health, then your ability to contribute to the economy, to be a good worker, to pursue more ventures beyond just work and contribute to your economy and your communities goes down dramatically. So when you're purposely putting out policies like this that are making the ability to stay healthy, to get healthy harder, you're basically jeopardizing that future economic growth. And the reality is Latinos are the driving force of the economy in Texas. We have been for some time, but now with the majority, we've taken over the majority of the population, in comparison to our white counterparts. So investment in the Latinos is critical. It's no longer about whether or not you just think it's a just policy or it's the right thing to do. It's economically the most sound and feasible thing to do. So any kind of policy doing harm to that is doing harm directly to the economy of Texas.
And I think you only have to understand the Latino population in Texas a little bit to understand that this has nothing to do, as some people might say, well, if you're documented, if you're legal, it shouldn't matter. But it does matter, right? The Latino population in Texas is very sensitive in terms of if my crazy uncle is undocumented, I am not going to go get the hospital service either because they might figure this out. And there's this chilling impact on whole families where the majority might be documented already, right? I mean, this is something that's going to impact the entire Latino population.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, one of the diehard kind of values of the Latino population, and I think of a lot of populations beyond that, is this notion that family is so central and so important. So taking any kind of risk that's going to jeopardize other family members is definitely it's an absolute no. And here's the thing, even if you don't have anybody who's undocumented or that you know is undocumented in your family, being Latino, being of brown skin, period, means this is now a threat to you, right? This goes very hand in hand with, the Operation Lone Star and other kind of different policies we've seen that have basically found ways to target anybody who's not white. I mean, let's be 100% clear. That's what this is about, because it's not going to be white immigrants that are going to be subject to this. They're going to be, stopped and pulled over for being suspect of being illegal, etc. So the reality is that this is going to, basically seep out into all other aspects of life, and it's going to create a fear. It's going to create an unsettling. But I think even worse is that it creates an additional level of divisiveness amongst Latinos. We have so many Latinos here in Texas that are 100% are fully behind these kind of policies. They want to separate themselves and quote unquote immigrants as being something different than them, something other. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we're not. No. We all are immigrants to this place, and only the true Mexicanos and indigenous Native Americans are really from here. All of our white counterparts that like to pretend that they're native Texans are not.
Yeah, they got here as quick as they could, but that doesn't count, right?
Exactly. It doesn't count. Exactly.
Bree?
And so, Natalie, I'm glad you brought up Operation Lone Star, because when I heard this news, I was immediately like, oh my gosh, there's been so much horrible news, so many horrible headlines coming out that really just target this population more than anything. Why do you think that's happening? Where is this sentiment coming from?
I mean, I think it goes back to, again, right? I mean, we know where Abbott is and his political aspirations, hoping that Trump wins and hoping that he gets a placement in the White House. That's been very clear, and he's made that very bold kind of remarks along that line to tout and to feed into that, voting population or sex. But really here in Texas, you've got a lot of really deep psychological, there's trauma, but there's intentionality, right? That kind of otherness that I was talking about, this need for Latinos to believe themselves as different. What we're really saying is there's this need for them to assimilate and to be part of something that equals success. And that something is whiteness, is Texas identity. And unfortunately, the things that have become, part and parcel of that identity is being anti-immigrant, is being somehow better than those that are less fortunate. So a lot of this really is deeply psychologically embedded, right? You think back to, my parents' generations. I'm a second generation here. My dad's from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. My mom was born in New York with her parents coming from Puerto Rico and Mexico. But that generation of population here in Texas, you couldn't speak Spanish. You were punished for it, not just in school with, very violent spankings where they lifted girls' skirts and beat them publicly and left them exposed. It came to being the Texas Rangers lynching Mexican Americans. It continued on into the policies and structures we see. So there's a lot of very real psychological reasons why we don't want to connect to that Latinidad or to that immigrant status. It's a huge reason why we have a lot of folks like me who understand Spanish but don't speak Spanish, because we don't fully want to go there, right? We don't fully, something psychologically is blocking us and telling us that that's not the path to success.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, it's good to hear you're Boricua, right? I always love Boricua.
Yes,
Bree's looking at me. That's Puerto Rican, Bree.
Oh,
so.
goodness.
So, I grew up in...
She's like, what did you just call her?
I'm like, excuse you?
I grew up in Aguadilla.
Absolutely.
I grew up in Aguadilla in Puerto Rico. So,
Oh, wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful.
So, Natalie, we're running out of time, but I did want to, one of the things that for me is very important is, we look at the Plyler decision in the Supreme Court, which allowed every child, no matter where they were from, to get public education. I wonder how soon we get to people challenging that in Texas. When we're taking away people's right to just go to the hospital because of health, how soon do we reach the point where we're not even allowing kids to come to school?
Yeah. I mean, let's be super clear, which is that's already in the works, right?
Yeah,
Whether or not it's made it to mainstream public, it's already in the works. So the reality, and I guess the call to action here is, Latinos need to step up. And, step one is exercise your political voice. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you go out and vote. But then there's so much more beyond that, right? You need to attend. You need to educate yourself. You need to educate your children. And in a lot of cases, the children educating the parents, right? Because we've had the privilege of education and can translate over both worlds. So, I mean, one, educate, be involved, be active in whatever format that makes sense. I definitely urge people to, follow the Latino Texas Policy Center. We've got a number of great partners that do direct advocacy work. We want to continue to bolster and support each other's work, but also just, get to know the realities of where Texas lies. Where as Latinos and as a state, we lag significantly behind other states socioeconomically and pretty much in every ranking factor. So if we think we're the perfect picture, know that we've got significant room for improvement, and know that we've got the resources and the talent to do that. We just need to push the political policy to go that direction and to really support all Texans.
The two largest groups in Texas that don't vote, Latinos and young people, right? And just a little bit in each would make a big difference in terms of how elections turned out.
Absolutely.
Natalie Sánchez-Lopez is Executive Director and CEO of Latino Texas Policy Center. Thank you very much, Natalie, for the work you and your team do, and I hope to have you back on the program some point.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Alrighty. Take care, Natalie. You're listening to Growing Up in America. And coming up next, Rebecca Cox is with us. She's the Chief Program Officer over at Girls, Inc. in Greater Houston. We're doing back to school, but we're going to talk also about what Girls, Inc. does. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America. You're listening to Growing Up in America with Bree and Dr. Bob. Bree, how's it going?
Oh, so good. I love that music. I was jamming.
Yeah, it's jamming. That's what Rico does. He just jams it. So Rebecca Cox is with us. She is the Chief Program Officer over at Girls, Inc. in Greater Houston. Girls, Inc. is a national organization. Rebecca, give us, for those that don't know about Girls, Inc., give us an idea what Girls, Inc. is.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Girls, Inc. of Greater Houston is a nonprofit, of course, where our mission is to inspire girls to be strong, smart, and bold. And we serve girls between the ages of 6 to 18. We deliver a research-based curriculum using a program model that allows us to really meet the needs of the whole girl. And we have a really diverse spectrum of curriculum that talks about different content, healthy living, academic enrichment, life skill development, and allows us to support them to have be prepared for economic success and college and career readiness content.
Yeah.
So.
Rebecca, when you look at girls across the state of Texas and here in Houston, what is the sort of the biggest obstacle to their academic success and their success in general?
Yeah, I think, some of the biggest barriers, that girls are going to face is that we talk a lot about gender stereotypes and lack of access to resources and societal pressures that really come up for girls. We have a Bill of Rights actually here at Girls Inc., where we recognize that all girls have, and so we recognize that girls have a right to be themselves, to resist gender stereotypes, to express themselves with originality and enthusiasm, to take risks, to appreciate their bodies, to have confidence, and to be able to feel prepared for interesting work and economic independence. And in order to be able to be functioning adults and ready to enter into the workforce and be able to navigate life, they need to be able to be equipped with things, and it really kind of ties back to navigating some of those gender stereotypes that they experience.
Yeah, I was on the phone early this morning talking to some of my colleagues up in Fort Worth, and they were talking. Girls Inc. came up because Girls Inc. has become part of the political discussion. You'd think we'd live in an age when everyone understands that we need to sort of do everything possible to let all kids be successful, including girls who may have different needs than boys. How is it that at some level Girls Inc. becomes part of the political discussion? And moreover, how does the idea of success for girls become politically divisive? It seems hard to understand, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's so much to unpack with that. Fortunately, Girls Inc. is actually a national organization, and we are, as affiliates, have each our own 501c3 nonprofit. So we're the local affiliate here, and on a national level, we have a group in Washington, D.C. that's able to be a part of the conversation there, and really help focus on the health rights and the all of the rights and needs of girls on a political or public level where those conversations come up. And what we see here on the programming side is, when we're creating program content that needs to go out that will allow girls to be able to have the, when we're doing hands-on activities with them, what we see sometimes, and it comes up in Texas specifically, is there is we have content on healthy sexuality. Of course, in Texas, there's restrictions sometimes on what we're able to take in, and of course, there's cultural and community-based needs that we have to take into consideration on that. But those are conversations where that comes up. And on a societal level, when we're talking about the rights and needs of girls, there's gender stereotype really comes up a lot because one of my soapboxes that I really love to get on, and I know I don't have a lot of time to be on one, but, we have phrases like bossy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those are behavioral traits that we identify that girls have, but there is no counterpoint language to describe a boy who exhibits those behaviors. We discuss relational aggression, and we have a hyper-focus in our society on mean girl behavior. Mm-hmm. But relational aggression is not exclusive to girls. So why does our society hyper-focus on girl aggression? It's like the chicken before the egg. Which one came first, right? And so I think as a society, we really have to think about what are we really influencing when it comes to the needs of girls, because it influences where our girls are going.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Very good. Bree?
Talking to my heart here. I'm so happy with this conversation and also very sad about it at the same time, being a girl myself. So you've pointed to a lot of opportunity for growth and where we can improve this situation, where we have a lot of challenges. What kind of civic engagement would you like to see? What can our politicians do to better support this? Or maybe it's not up to the politicians. Maybe it's up to our community leaders, our impactful figures in people's lives. What would you have to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, soapbox and to unpack, I think, there's so many things about mental health, right, and health equity and mental health, and, there's still a gender wage gap in our country. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about what needs to be done, it's not exclusive to politicians. I mean, whether it be within industries and corporations, I think, I had a mentor once that said, focus on what you can do. And I think, across the board, we really need to look at what can we do to really look at the equity needs of girls and women in our country, and make sure that, I always say, like, is there an equal to that for boys? Are we, like I said, the phrases of bossy, when we're talking about Mean Girls, when we're talking about health education, when we're talking about is there a counterpart to what we're discussing for boys? And if not, then I think we really have to consider, are we being, is equity a part of the conversation? And so on a political level, I try not to get too deep into the weeds on politics because I'm not, I don't get paid to discuss that, to be perfectly honest. And so we do have, national people who kind of discuss those things, but, when it comes to health reproduction, that's a really big topic on girls and women. That I think that, across our country and in our state that needs to be discussed more. And then even like on a pay equity component, there's, women are highly underrepresented, and 82 cents to the dollar according to the Pew Research Center, in 2022. So I think there's just a lot that we can continue to focus on doing. And what I love about our girls when we do groups with them, they have fantastic ideas. So, making sure that girls and women are a part of the conversation, and they have amazing ideas on how we can move forward as a community, but they need to have a seat at the table.
We need to have Rebecca back on because this is a good ongoing conversation. We need to talk more about what Girls Inc. is doing. We're at our final minute, Rebecca, which is where we like to ask a few fun questions. So it's back to school week, Rebecca. And so what was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, my favorite subject in school, I would have to say was probably at the time writing, because I love to write stories. But now I would say it's history. If I could go back, and I would want to go back to my government class and appreciate that one a little bit more. Yeah,
very good. You have a fun question for Rebecca, Bree?
Yeah, I was actually just wondering, so thinking about childhood as well, what was your favorite snack that you wish you could still get?
Yes.
Okay, so I once had an orange dreamsicle that a friend's mom gave me that I never could find again. I don't know if they don't make them anymore, but I dream about that orange dreamsicle.
Oh, they make them. I guarantee you, Rebecca. I have found those, so it's, they're very good, right? They have like the little white cream in the middle. And,
yes.
Oh, man. Yeah, very good. Rebecca Cox is the Chief Program Officer at Girls Inc. of Greater Houston. And Rebecca, promise us you'll come back on the show again.
Absolutely, anytime.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Thanks. Please give our best to your colleagues, and thank you so much. Bree, thank you very much for being out here, right?
Thank you, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, so it was great. And we will see all of you next time here on Growing Up in America.
With a dream, my cardigan. Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit in? Jumped in the cab, here I am for the first time. Look to my right and I see the Hollywood sign. This is all so crazy. Everybody seems so famous. My tummy's turning and I'm feeling kinda homesick. Too much pressure and I'm nervous. That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. So I put my hands up to play my song. The butterflies fly away. Nodding my head like yeah. Moving my hips like yeah. Got my hands up to play my song. You know I'm gonna be okay. Yeah. It's a party in the USA. Yeah. It's a party in the USA. Get to the
Great if life came with a remote control. You could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind. Like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, You can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control. Yikes. So you're on your own with the WASPs. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
We are the boy band. Your tween made you see. We are the boy band. It's Painful Concert number 3. We are the boy band. We're 5 and 19. We are the boy band. Always singing on key.
You love your kids enough to take them to see their favorite band. Love them enough to make sure they're buckled up in